Hello and welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for joining us today. When you look at your fields, you'd like them to be green, right? You want the plants to be green all year until we get to harvest time. Then the question is, are green plants really a benefit for you? We'll talk about that today.
Well, one of the other things we want to discuss today is managing phosphorus in high pH soil. How you treat your phosphorus, how you apply it, how you manage it long term has a tremendous impact on yield, but pH really matters. We'll talk about that today.
Another thing that can have a big impact on your yields is our weed of the week. We'll show you how to stop this tough weed coming up later in the show. But first, here's our farm basics.
Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
During our Farm Basics time today, we're going to talk about crop diseases that overwinter versus those that do not, and why this makes such a difference for those of us on the farm.
Well, if you're farming right at the equator and there's never a winter, you don't have to worry about this discussion at all. You're going to have diseases that'll impact plants, and they could happen pretty much any time throughout the season, oftentimes depending on if you're getting moisture or not, so you have conducive conditions in the field for those diseases. But if you farm in an area of the country where there is a winter, you have a chance that with those freezing temperatures, not only can you get rid of insects, you also could stop diseases from overwintering.
So, for example, there are some diseases that we don't really have to worry all that much about them overwintering. In our corn, for example, or even in soybeans, we can get rust. Well, common rust, for example, usually blows up from the southern United States for us, and we don't typically have to worry about this until mid-season or late season. With common rust, I'm really not that concerned about it then. It doesn't matter if I rotate crops, it doesn't matter what I do for tillage, all those types of things, because it just doesn't overwinter. Not a real big concern.
In wheat, there is a type of rust called stripe rust that has become a major disease problem across many wheat growing areas, and that was thought to not overwinter as well. However, when we have a living host, so a plant that's susceptible to stripe rust, and we have a very mild winter where we don't really get that hard freeze, all of a sudden we can see some of that stripe rust overwintering. So there is a fine line here between how cold is cold enough to stop these diseases and which ones could potentially sneak by and overwinter.
Unfortunately, most diseases do overwinter, at least the ones we're really concerned about. We've got fusarium, you can look at gray leaf spot. There are just so many diseases that overwinter, and that's what I get really concerned about. So, what we try to do as farmers to manage those just with a cultural practice, not having to spray a fungicide or anything like that, is simply rotate crops. If I've got one disease that only affects corn, for example, like gray leaf spot, then I want to rotate to a non-host crop like soybeans. The disease can't live in that crop. So hopefully over time, if let's say I was to stay on soybeans for a year, then hopefully during the course of that year, a lot of that disease disappears. By the next time I rotate back to corn, then much of that disease is gone and I don't have as much trouble.
The other thing farmers will do is sometimes they will do tillage, where they'll till the residue underneath the soil to try to take some of that residual seed for the disease and bury it deep so it doesn't impact the next crop. This is something that's been done really for all of history. Farmers have done some tillage whenever they needed to get rid of a disease or to lessen disease pressure.
The other big thing that we look at on the farm is variety selection. Certain varieties have good tolerance or even resistance to particular diseases. And yes, I can go out and spray a fungicide that will kill fungus, but what good is that going to do on some of the bacterial diseases like bacterial leaf spot, bacterial leaf streak, or maybe Goss's wilt?
One last thing farmers can do is vary their planting date to try to time things out better. So if a disease normally hits at a certain time of year, maybe it's a real cool season disease, farmers can simply wait to plant their crop a little bit to avoid some of that disease pressure. Or if it's one that strikes late in the season, they could plant a little bit earlier and try to get harvest done, or at least get very close to harvest before that disease could hit, and that could lessen the impact as well.
So every year on the farm, we as farmers have to take a look at what diseases are affecting our crops, what could we possibly rotate to, which varieties could we plant, what management practices can we take, and hopefully we have diseases that don't overwinter and we don't have to worry about it too much next year anyway. But most diseases that we do have on the farm, at least in the upper Midwest, unfortunately they do overwinter, and we do have to look at other management practices to control them.
Weed of the Week doesn't necessarily overwinter, but it's something that we do see each year in the upper Midwest. Can you identify this week's Weed of the Week?
Let's take a look at our picks for the championship season. We've got 1034-0.
No. I don't want to talk about them. I want to talk about this Agro Liquid team. Take a look at this lineup. They got it all. The talent, their players can meet any challenge on any field. The coaching staff, the best I've seen.
So that's your pick? No discussions?
Nope. Agro Liquid is the team. They're going all the way to the championship.
Dealers, repair shops, and other ag parts resellers, this message is for you. Looking to save money on your parts purchases? Parts Express can help. We have over 3,000 popular items for tractors and combines priced at a level to save you and your customers money. In this tough ag economy, who wouldn't want to save on parts? Parts Express prides itself with old-fashioned service and easy-to-do business with environment. Go to parts-exp.com to see our parts offering and become a Parts Express dealer today.
Leading the charge in strip tillage for more than a decade, the Soil Warrior brings the future to your farm today.
The desire to bring real-world solutions to growers' difficult production challenges has led Bayer to introduce Credenz, our national brand of soybean seed, backed by years of research in smart genetics. Smart genetics is based on 4 concepts. State-of-the-art breeding allows Bayer to identify key traits and characteristics that bring value and protection to your soybean production situation. Next is herbicide-tolerant traits. The flexibility of multiple trait platforms allows growers to pick the most effective weed control system for their farm. Next is tailored varieties. With a robust portfolio, Credenz offers many solutions for difficult situations that you may experience, along with our best-in-class agronomic service team to support variety selection. And last is ongoing innovation. Bayer is continuing to invest in ways to improve yields and increase the profitability on your farm.
Tired of that old warped poly boom ruining your spray applications? Express Boom from Hypro is a fully assembled stainless steel boom that ensures an even application of chemicals every time. Don't wait another season, upgrade today. Hypro, helping you spray better.
Phosphorus is an interesting nutrient to manage. We worry about it in the Midwest with high pH soils and tie-up. So we'll talk a little today about tie-up and how to manage your phosphorus applications so you don't have big issues out on the farm and so you can get the maximum amount out of the phosphorus that you apply.
When we look at managing phosphorus in soils, one of the first things that pops out to me is, well, which type of measurement are you going to use to look at how much phosphorus will be available? Well, if we're in high pH soils, we like the Olsen bicarbonate test better than we like the results from the Bray test. And the reason why is just the extraction method is a little more accurate as to which amount of phosphorus will be available for you this particular year.
All right, let's talk about that Olsen test just a little bit more. What you're probably going to get is a reading that says parts per million. Well, how do you convert parts per million to pounds per acre? That's what we really care about. If you've got 6 inches of soil, you have roughly 2 million pounds across an entire acre. So if you've got a parts per million reading on that soil test, let's call it 20. Then just simply multiply times 2 to get 40 pounds per acre. Now, with phosphorus, we also talk an awful lot about phosphate, because when you buy phosphorus at any fertilizer dealer, they're going to give you a reading in phosphate. Okay, they're going to talk all about phosphate recommendations. In fact, if you look at the Ag PhD fertilizer removal app, it will tell you how much phosphate does a crop need. Okay, well, how do you convert phosphorus? I just figured out I have 40 pounds of phosphorus. Well, how much phosphate is that? Is it 40 pounds of phosphate? No, you have to multiply phosphorus times 2.3. Okay, so simply take your figure, whatever that is on phosphorus, multiply that times 2.3. That will tell you how much phosphate you have in the soil.
So in this case, you take 40 times 2.3, you get 92 pounds of phosphate. Now you compare that to the total uptake that your crop is going to need. Not just crop removal, but look at total uptake to see, okay, what do I need to have a healthy plant all the way through the season? And that's where you start building your phosphorus recommendation from. Now, the other thing here is if we're in a high pH situation, let's just say that we're at an 8 pH, just for a round number. Well, that's really high. That's 10 times too alkaline compared to a neutral pH of 7. And if you say, wow, I'd really rather be in the mid-6s, well, it's even more alkaline than that. So we've got a problem. We're going to have some issues trying to get phosphorus into our roots. So how do you do that? Well, most commonly in high pH soils, we'll utilize the technique of banding. That means keeping that nutrient really close together, and when it's really close together and concentrated, you have less chance of tie-up.
Okay, we mentioned tie-up a couple times. I just want to give you a real quick example of that. So let's say we are in high pH soil. Typically in high pH soil we have a lot of calcium, and we do find that phosphate binds with calcium to form calcium phosphate. Unfortunately, calcium phosphate is insoluble in water. It's not going to be available to your plants. That's worst case scenario for you as a farmer. You go spend a bunch of money on your phosphorus and it binds with the calcium so your plant can't even get it. That doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun, does it? Now eventually somebody might get that fertilizer out 5 years, 10 years, 50 years down the road, but you probably won't this year. So how are you going to prevent that type of thing? Like Darren said, banding is one way to do it. The other thing that I look at is, well, let's fix the soil. What's wrong with my soil? How did it end up as a high pH soil in the first place? A lot of times it's poor drainage. Now certainly there could be other factors too. Maybe it's just erosion, you've got high pH subsoil, but over time you've got to do what you can to get that pH down. So we talk about fixing your drainage first. If you've got drainage fixed, then you might want to take a look at elemental sulfur, maybe some gypsum. You might even need more lime. Get more calcium in total out there. And I know it sounds counterintuitive. What? I may have a calcium problem already. I want more calcium. Well, if you have low calcium, you aren't getting good drainage. You don't have good porosity in that soil. So you've got to get those things fixed. So this is kind of separate from this phosphorus discussion in that, hey, we want to get the pH down, but it all ties back together, because if we have that pH in a good range, in the 6 to 7 range, let's just call it, well, phosphorus is a lot more available than when it's over 7 and especially over 7.5.
The other thing is looking at phosphorus and where you're going to place it. I mentioned putting it in a concentrated band. We've really had good luck with that in higher pH soils and in lower pH soils, to be fair too. But we like to keep it somewhere where that root system is going to grow. On our farm, we like to use strip till, where we're putting that phosphorus down 8 or 10 inches deep, directly below where we're going to plant the seed. That way we know that root system is going to grow right through that phosphorus band, and we're going to easily access the fertilizer. Another way that's commonly being used is in a 2x2. So you place it just to the side of the row. Now, if you're out there with your planter, you know exactly where that seed is going to be in relation to the phosphorus. You don't have to rely on GPS and separate applications and a whole bunch of extra steps here. You can do it all at one time. We've found a really good success with products like ProGerminator, for example, that is protected from tie-up, and it gives you extended availability throughout the season.
So one thing I guess I'll leave you with here is, you want to first look at how much phosphorus do you need. And if you say, look, I've got to have 100 pounds of phosphorus or phosphate out there, well, you better make sure you have a lot more than that if you have a higher pH soil. Do some banding. Make sure your rates are really high. Get those levels up there so in time you get all that phosphate that that plant needs into the plant. Then continue to do plant tissue analysis to just see overall how are you doing. It's one thing to look at the soil test, but we really want to look at the plant tissue analysis later on. And hey, if you've got problems, yeah, maybe there's some way to get a little phosphorus out there later in the season, but if nothing else, you can say, hey, going into next year, I'm going to do more to get more phosphate into my plant.
One other thing you may be striving to get better at for next year is controlling our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?
There are 6,272,640 square inches in an acre. We counted. Why? Because we designed the TigerMate 255 field cultivator and 2000 series early riser planter to maximize every single one. So when you create the most level seed bed in the industry and target a nickel-size area to plant a seed and never miss, you'll know in high-efficiency farming, there's one name to count on: Case IH. Rethink productivity. Learn more at caseih.com/everyinch.
Out here, great yield starts with great weed control. That's why I choose the system that makes the difference. The system I put to work. Because only I know what it takes out here. Yield's what it's all for. But keeping my fields clean all season, that's what it's all about. This is my field.
We love the quality, we love the construction. We're looking forward to working with Morton in the future.
They have this down to a science. They know exactly what you want. They know how to make it happen. It's an easy process.
I would definitely recommend Morton. From the first time I met the salesman to the last nail that the crew put in, it has been a positive and professional experience.
I'm so happy I found Morton because they just make the job so easy.
Find the building of your dreams at mortonbuildings.com.
In life, when you put the max in, you get the max out. It's no different for your corn, which is why 40 years of effort have gone into proving that Instinct and N-Serve nitrogen stabilizers do more than just stabilize nitrogen, they maximize nitrogen, so your corn gives you the max in return.
In today's market, growers deserve products that bring true, measurable value to their farm. My name is Wade Barnes, and I am the co-founder and CEO of Farmer's Edge. We believe the only way to understand value is to experience it yourself. Try our integrated data solutions with no commitments until May 2018. I know we can make a difference on your farm. Your data is your asset. Own it and use it.
Green plants at harvest, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, all right, let's talk about a couple different crops. Let's talk about corn to start with. If you've got green plants and your grain is dry and ready to harvest, and I'm talking about in the mid-20s to maybe even low 20s, you're ready to go with harvest. You've got green plants top to bottom. Is that good? I say absolutely. If we can keep good plant health all the way to harvest, think about it. We're still catching sunlight. Until we black layer, we're still feeding those kernels. So that means we fed the kernels all the way up until black layer. That's fantastic. We added as many nutrients to that kernel as we can, and I would suggest you're going to see a big impact on test weight and yield if you can keep your corn green that long.
All right, now I want to take the other side. I want no green plants at harvest for harvest ease. I don't care if it's corn, it's soybeans, whatever crop it is. You and I both know if there is nothing green out in that field, the combine runs a lot easier. So I'd like to have top yields, Darren, with brown plants in the fall, not green plants in the fall.
Well, here's the thing. What we're striving for is better plant health throughout the season. We want those leaves to be perfectly green, no spots of disease, no insect feeding, nothing like that. And we want to have great canopy all through the season too to hold down the weed pressure. And we'll talk about one of those weeds. You want to stop in our weed of the week here coming up in just a minute. But you think about that. I like green plants, Brian. I really do. And I want to have good plant health. I think that's extremely important with our plants. Now here's the other side though, Brian. You say you want brown plants. Some people will say, well, I still have green beans out there. I'm hoping for a frost late in the season.
Yeah, and I hate that. I mean, quite frankly, we want that plant to naturally die, not die from anything else. I really don't like desiccation unless I have to. I don't like frost unless we have to have it. So I'd rather have everything finished green. And so realistically, yes, I'm talking about, oh, I'd love to have harvest ease, but at the end of the day, you don't cash in harvest ease. What you cash in is the total number of bushels and the grain quality. And just from the way it appears to us, plants are greener later in the season when we have a healthier crop. So I think it's something we're all going to have to learn to live with.
All right, let me add two last things, Brian. We used to plant later maturing corn on our farm, and it was just as brown as the corn we're planting now, the early corn. The difference is we're keeping that early corn healthier by using fungicides and other things to keep that plant growing all through the season. And if you want to complain about, well, harvestability, if the plant's still green, fine. I'm just concerned about yield. And if we can keep that plant healthier and greener, we do get more yield more times than not.
Now, Darren mentioned fungicide, but it's everything. It's seed treatment, it's variety selection, it's fertility, it's weed control, insect control, disease control. There are so many things that go into it. And again, yes, I would love to have harvestees, but at the end of the day, I want the best possible yield and grain quality.
All right, you want harvestees, Brian? Here's how you get it. Control our weed of the week so you don't have to deal with this at harvest time. We'll show you how to stop it coming up next.
The Weed of the Week is brought to you by Dow AgroSciences. Finish the fight against tough weeds with the Enlist Weed Control System.
Weeds are tough, but we're tougher. With unrivaled weed control, reduced drift, and near zero volatility. So, who's tough now?
Weed of the week is spotted spurge.
Spotted spurge is normally a summer annual plant, so it germinates when you have a little bit warmer temperature. So if you're further north in the country, you probably see this a little bit later in the season than some of the other weeds that are popping up out there. The thing about spotted spurge is it's really opportunistic. It likes to have empty spaces. So if you've got something that happened, like let's just say a drowned out spot in a field, well, now all of a sudden you have no crop canopy and then you see spotted spurge. Or most commonly where I see this one is in gardens where you've tried so hard to keep everything clean, but you got space in between plants. What pops up? Well, spotted spurge is one of those weeds.
And here's the problem with spotted spurge. It has a milky sap that is poisonous to certain animals. So you have to be really concerned about this out in a pasture, anywhere that animals are going to be grazing, sheep in particular, but this is a problematic weed.
All right, so when you think about control methods, what I've used for years and years, Brian, has been 2,4-D, and now there's new 2,4-D choline products that we really have virtually no volatility. It's a shame we even call them 2,4-Ds because we can use them pretty safely even around some very sensitive plants.
Yeah, so a lot of the pasture herbicides are going to take this out. You could use Distinct. Even Toradon will have some activity on this particular weed. But what I'm thinking about today is, well, how about if I get it out in my fields? How am I going to control it there? In soybeans, I'd probably run with 3 Pre's. In corn, I'd prefer Verdict. In wheat, I'd probably run with Sharpen. Those are all the pre-emerge options. Post-emerge, like Darren said, obviously 2,4-D, dicamba, any of those types of products would work in crops where those are labeled. Otherwise, Roundup and Liberty have activity on it as well.
Well, the other thing is just get a great crop canopy, whether you're in a pasture or in a row crop field or in a garden. If you've got great canopy in a garden, you can use some mulch down out in your pasture. Just fertilize your pasture well. Get good grass growth and don't let it get mowed down and overgrazed.
All right, well, that's it for our Weed of the Week, Spotted Spurge. Stay tuned. Iron Talk is coming up next.
There are 6,272,640 square inches in an acre. We counted. Why? Because we designed the TigerMate 255 field cultivator and 2000 series early riser planter to maximize every single one. So when you create the most level seedbed in the industry and target a nickel-size area to plant a seed and never miss, you'll know in high-efficiency farming, there's one name to count on: Case IH. Rethink productivity. Learn more at caseih.com/everyinch.
N, P, and K. They're critical for a healthy crop. Improve their availability and your yield potential with QuickRoots Microbial Seed Inoculant. QuickRoots technology contains 2 powerful microbes that can help improve access to key nutrients. and it's available in an easy-to-apply formulation. Simply mix it directly into your dry planter box and your seeds will be covered. Learn more at monsantobioag.com/quickroots.
There are micronutrients throughout the league, Joe, but let's take a look at Micro 500.
Yeah, the synergy of the micronutrients in this guy have raised the bar on the field. Those others are just wannabe Micro 500s.
So you think this is the player you'd want on your team?
You bet, whether it's offense, defense, special teams, Micro 500 always has a place on the field.
Okay. You can check out Micro 500 stats at agroliquid.com.
Introducing the SoilMax ZD48, the newest addition to the SoilMax Gold Digger lineup. The first plow designed for smaller class tractors, the ZD48 has been tested on tractors weighing between 10,000 and 16,000 pounds with excellent results. Designed for row crop farms, vineyards, irrigation, and specialty crop farms. The SoilMax ZD48 will install tile up to 48 inches deep, as well as install 3 or 4-inch tile. The ZD48 truly opens up the world of tile installation to more farms than ever before.
Out here, great yield starts with great weed control. That's why I choose the system that makes the difference. The system I put to work. Because only I know what it takes out here. Yield's what it's all for. But keeping my fields clean all season, that's what it's all about. This is my field.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
The AFS Connect Farm Management System from Case IH connects you, and only you, to the information you need most from your equipment, from anywhere, at any time. AFS Connect, only from Case IH.
If your diesel equipment requires the use of diesel exhaust fluid, or DEF, cooler temperatures require some additional management considerations. Today's Iron Talk will focus on the use and storage of DEF for winter months. DEF is a blend of urea and water. Its function in Tier 4 and newer engines is to neutralize engine pollutants. DEF isn't toxic and it's not flammable. The big concern with DEF this time of year is that it will freeze when its temperature drops to 12 degrees Fahrenheit. With plenty of work to still be done in fields and with livestock through the cold winter months, DEF needs to be managed well to avoid problems. First, store equipment and additional DEF supplies inside when the weather is cold. Second, if DEF will be left in an environment where it's going to freeze, be sure to leave plenty of room for expansion in the tank or storage container to avoid cracking the container. Expansion can be in the 5 to 10% range for a rough guideline. Fortunately, once DEF is warmed back up, it returns to its original properties and works just fine. Third, since DEF contains urea, it can be corrosive, so store it in the proper containers. HDPE plastic and stainless steel jugs or tanks are preferred. Not only could DEF damage improper containers, the quality of the DEF itself can be compromised. Fourth, due to some of the issues detailed already, you want to make sure that DEF is in good condition. When stored properly to avoid extreme temperatures, both high and low, as well as avoiding direct sunlight and improper metal containers, DEF can maintain its usefulness for up to 12 months. Finally, check your filter and replace it as necessary. This keeps the DEF pure and allows it to perform its function in your engine. Cold temperatures can lead to problems with DEF as it will freeze below 12 degrees. Keep it stored inside in the proper containers to avoid problems. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show.
Closed captioning for Ag PhD is sponsored by Norwood Sales.
If you're looking to expand your farm's grain handling, you want everything to be fast and efficient. The Quick Belt from Norwood Sales is your all-around grain handling solution. Our conveyor-based system uses an 18-inch belt and a 10-inch tube, which minimizes seed damage while moving more than 10,000 bushels an hour. That's fast enough to fill a semi in 6 minutes. Plus, our hood is designed to gently direct the flow of grain straight down, keeping your crop in condition. Keep your grain and your farm moving with the Quick Belt from Norwood Sales.
Well, that's our time for today, but before we go, we want to invite you to tune into the Ag PhD radio show. We air at 2 p.m. Central each weekday on SiriusXM Channel 147.
And don't miss the next Ag PhD TV show. We'll have another Weed of the Week, Iron Talk, and a whole lot more. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.
Did you realize that a healthy soil only contains about 50% dirt? In order for the soil microbes and plants to work together properly, soil should contain 25% air and 25% water. Today's farming practices are designed around maintaining that healthy balance. To learn more, visit rnmf.org.